Today we're taking an in-depth look at the Waking Vigil Handcannon. I'll start this review by talking about where and how to obtain the Handcannon. You can randomly obtain this from most Dreaming City activities. The most standout feature you'll immediately notice about this Handcannon is its RPM. It shoots at 150 rounds per minute and is, I think, the only handcannon in this DLC Forsaken to do so. 150 RPM handcannons have a distinct advantage over 140 RPM because both archetypes kill in 3 headshots. The balancing on 150 RPM handcannons is sort of wonky because it doesn't seem like there's any trade-off for using it. Yes, 140s have slightly more range, but when you compare the aim assist and stability of 150s, I don't see why you're not just using a spam cannon like this. Not to mention that this archetype of handcannon is considered a lightweight frame, which boosts movement speed and handling. So as it turns out, there's almost no drawbacks to using this handcannon, with the exception of the fact that it is arc, and if somebody really hates your soul, they'll throw on Risk Runner. Another drawback of this specific handcannon is the fact that it cannot roll extra lethal perks like Rampage or Kill Clip. But of course it makes up for this by offering perks that improve what it's already phenomenal at: spam ability, aim assist. For those of you out there who feel like you have to have a god roll of every weapon, let me theorycraft what is my personal god roll. In the first perk slot available, you have the option between Snapshot, Dragonfly, Outlaw, Autoloading Holster, and Slide Shot. All are honestly good choices, but I think you get the most mileage out of Slide Shot or Snapshot. In the second perk slot, you have the option between Outlaw, Opening Shot, Grave Robber, Triple Tap, Hipfire, and Zen Moment. In the Light.gg database, I see that Outlaw is listed in both perk slots, so I assume that the Bungie curated role of this contains Outlaw. My personal choice for perks here is going to be Opening Shot or Hipfire Grip. The reason that I value Opening Shot in this slot is because it pretty much guarantees a first shot headshot. And seeing as this requires 3 consecutive headshots to put down a target, only having to consciously aim for 2 of those makes it a lot more consistent. Seriously, take a look at this background footage. I'm aiming at his belly button and get a headshot, and then I snap to the right as fast as I can and still get a headshot because 150 RPM. Then I slide shot to re-opening shot, and it works like a charm. Not to mention that on top of that stupid bullet magnetism, you get reduced damage drop-off whenever you use Opening Shot. Now I tested this at a crazy distance, 43 meters for a hand cannon, and it prevented about 11 points of damage on drop-off. But to be fair, if you don't have the best RNG, then the Bungie curated role of Outlaw, Snapshot, and armor-piercing rounds or ricochet rounds is a phenomenal role. The reason that I would value the Hipfire perk is because normally what happens is I get 1-2 headshots off before a shotgunner closes the gap. By aiming from the hip, I can strafe faster, and if I land that headshot from the hip, he's dead. If not, then I probably have to use an ability jump, which means I'll be firing from the hip. As for the third perk, I prefer ricochet rounds over everything because ricochet rounds increase the zoom, which decreases damage drop-off. Think of ricochet rounds acting as an invisible rangefinder perk. They also do exactly what you would think, which is ricochet off surfaces.
Just hit headshots. Just hit headshot.
Oh, I got him! As for the sight on the handcannon, it's really personal preference. I maxed out the range as much as I could, plugged in my controller, and still seemed to be hitting a lot of shots. There isn't as much recoil as you would think. In this background footage, you'll see the King of No Recoil Dire Promise versus a range spec'd out Vigil. The big takeaway from this simple recoil test is the spacing between the bullets. On the Waking Vigil, that might require pulling down just ever so slightly, whereas the Dire Promise, look at the space between 3 bullets. It's not very much at all, and with the aim assist of these handcannons, with Dire Promise, you probably don't have to correct whatsoever. But keep in mind that by trading off range and stability, range offers more bullet magnetism. So depending on whether you go for a full stability roll or a full range roll, it's kind of a toss-up between which is the more brainless, spammable handcannon. On the subject of range, I tested the Waking Vigil against other handcannons of the same archetype and against Ace of Spades because it's the most used handcannon. I marked off key distances at which certain guns drop off and compared them against the other guns. Here's what you gotta pay attention to. Keep in mind that my Waking Vigil has opening shot, and in parentheses I put what that opening shot would hit. At 43 meters, it gives a plus 11. I've already talked about this, but look at what Ricochet Rounds does. It just gives it an inherent 41, which is a 5 tap, which improves itself at that distance, which is where Ace of Spades will 3 tap with Memento Mori. So if Ace of Spades doesn't have Memento Mori, and your Waking Vigil has Ricochet Rounds, there's a sweet spot between 36 and 43 meters where you can beat an Ace of Spades. But to be safe, considering the rarity of rolling Ricochet Rounds, pay attention to what Jack Queen King hits. You can obtain that from playing Curse of Osiris and going through the Osiris questline. But if you don't feel like grinding for that, then your only other option is to previously have had a Dire Promise, which sports range very similar to a Waking Vigil without any range perks. But if you somehow hit the jackpot on a Waking Vigil with both opening shot, slide shot, ricochet rounds, and a very long range sight, I predict that you could have up to a 10 meter advantage on a Jack Queen King. To consider that I'm only 1 perk away from that, it's kinda heartbreaking. The last thing to mention about this Handcannon is which Masterwork perk is right for you. I recommend range as the S tier, and then everything else pretty much tied for the tier below it. Let's shift away from the on-paper review and start paying attention to how it works in action. So I'm going to jump, pop a headshot, blink over that ape, and then end his life with the snipe. Now, my snipe is going to be on cooldown from that reload, so I'm not able to take the shot, but I slide back out and swiftly pop him twice in the head. Notice slide shot and opening shot working in tandem. Now I use the sword to see third person, snipe out, just because I wanted somebody to walk into it. Again, third person, see someone lined up, I shoot at the weaker target because it's a guaranteed body shot, no need to aim for the head, and start dueling. I think he's going to commit, he does not commit, he goes back into cover, so I work an even tighter angle. Now 2 enemies are behind me shooting, I pop Devour, have an opportunity to Nova Bomb to get all of my health back, and then back to dueling. Look at my ammo in the bottom left. I'm using slide shot to its absolute best capacity. Now because Devour keeps reprocking, I'm able to slide opening shot and absolutely dump truck this entire team. As the adrenaline hits me of what nonsense is going on right now, I start to miss some shots, but that's okay because my teammates finally showed up to help me. Now while yes, this Handcannon is very solid, I can't lie and say that I wouldn't prefer to use my Luna's Howl or Not Forgotten, or even Ace of Spades. I can firsthand attest that whenever I plug in a controller and use this gun, it still feels very, very forgiving. Even when the PC recoil glitch kicks in, I can still pretty consistently hit shots. Which brings up one final talking point. I want to quickly talk about hitting your shots as a method to prevent shotgun aping. Because I feel like if the entire community did it, the community at large might be able to punish shotgun apes enough that they consider looking for a different solution to getting kills. We're going to break this down into 3 different types of players. Number 1, the aimbot. Number 2, the amazing aimer. And number 3, the average aimer. If you're an aimbot, use Not Forgotten or Luna's Howl because you will absolutely out TTK any shotgun rusher before they even get within kill distance. If you're an amazing aimer, use the Waking Vigil because it's very, very likely that you're going to hit them 3 times in the head before they close the gap. And finally, if you're an average shot, stick to Ace of Spades. Yes, the RPM is lower, but the headshot potential with Memento Mori doesn't require as much. And if you're none of the above, there is no shame whatsoever in using a totally different weapon type. For example, pulse rifles work very good at a distance, so as long as you play cover very, very smart and keep your distance, well, shotgun rusher is going to struggle. In my opinion, while handcannons are revered as the skill cannons of this game or the skilled weapon of this game, I sort of disagree because handcannons are not tracking weapons. I think it takes a little bit more skill to maintain target tracking than it does to just flick on the target when your gun is ready to fire the next bullet. And because handcannons typically fire at a slower RPM than other guns, it is very easy to reacquire your target when the next bullet is available. Don't misinterpret this as me saying handcannons take no skill. I'm just trying to give out some tips to help the community better deal with shotgun rushers, and what better place to do it than on a review that really, really helps the cause. I would hate to see things in this game unnecessarily nerfed without the community first at least attempting to practice the counter. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope you appreciate the time and effort that went into painstakingly finding all the ins and outs of this handcannon. I love you guys. Thanks for supporting my channel. Seriously. Gracious.